In the late 1980s, a string of murders terrorized the Colonial Parkway in Virginia. The victims were all young couples, and their deaths were brutal and senseless. The killer, who has never been caught, has been dubbed the couple killer. This are some of their stories. The story begins on October 12, 1986, with Kathleen Thomas and Rebecca Dowski, two college students. Thomas was a 27-year-old graduate of the United States Naval Academy. She was a bright and ambitious young woman who had a promising future ahead of her. Dowski was a 21-year-old student at the College of William and Mary. She was a kind and gentle soul who loved animals and music. The two women had been dating for several months, and they were very close. They were both active in their community, and they were known for their outgoing personalities and their love of life. On October 9, 1986, the couple was seen leaving a computer lab at William and Mary College. They were never seen alive again. Their bodies were found the following morning in a secluded area of the Colonial Parkway, just a few miles from Thomas's home. They had been strangled and stabbed multiple times. Their car had been pushed down an embankment, and it was covered in diesel fuel. An autopsy found rope burns on their necks and wrists, signs of strangulation. Their throats had been slashed so deeply that they were nearly decapitated, and the killer had covered the bodies and vehicle with gasoline, but not actually lit them on fire. There were 150 partial latent prints found on and in the car, in addition to full prints, but they matched to no one in the records, however. Rebecca's body was found in the back seat of the car, while Kathy's was found stuffed into the hatchback. It appears that Thomas may have struggled with her attacker, as a clump of hair was later found between her fingers. Both women were fully clothed, and there was no evidence of sexual assault. Authorities ruled out robbery as a motive, since both women's purses were located within the vehicle, and no money or jewelry had been taken. At that time, the police believed that the murders happened elsewhere, and the bodies had been dumped in the car since there was not much blood in the car itself. A second incident occurred on April 10, 1988, involving another young couple. Richard Keith Call and Cassandra Lee Haley were both students at Christopher Newport University. Call was a 23-year-old musician and a member of the school's marching band. Haley was a 19-year-old student who loved to dance. They were on their first date together when they were reported missing. Call's unoccupied vehicle was discovered abandoned at the York River Overlook on Colonial Parkway in Yorktown, Virginia. The keys were on the driver's seat, and a watch and eyeglasses were on the dashboard. Nearly all of the clothing Call was wearing, including his underwear, was also found in the back of the car, as were some of Haley's clothes and her underwear. Police later confirmed that it was the same clothing Richard and Cassandra wore the night they disappeared. Her purse and Call's wallet were missing. The wallet had contained at least $20 in cash. There was no trace of Haley or Call at the Overlook. Their bodies have never been found, but both are presumed dead. Police dogs tracked the two students sent to the York River shoreline. Authorities initially believed they had gone swimming and drowned, but an extensive search of the river turned up no sign of them. Homicide was suspected. To this day, they are still missing. A third and fourth incident occurred in the year 1987 and 1988. Brian Craig Pettinger was a heavy equipment operator who was last seen at a Hampton, Virginia dance club on December 4, 1987, at 11:30 p.m. 2 months later, on February 3, 1988, Pettinger's body was found by fishermen floating in a marshy area of the James River in Suffolk, Virginia. He was floating with his wrists and ankles tied, and a rope around his neck. The lead investigator in the case believed that Pettinger had likely been hog-tied. The autopsy showed that Pettinger had blunt force blows to the back of the head. He had also been thrown in the river alive and then drowned. Pettinger's murder remains unsolved, but it occurred during and around the area where the Colonial Parkway murders took place. Lori Ann Powell Compton was a Gloucester High School graduate who went missing on March 8, 1988, after having an argument with her boyfriend. She was last seen by him at 23:30, walking on the dark and deserted Route 614 in Gloucester County. She was wearing a purple pullover, cotton shirt with a white collar. Lori was not scheduled to be at work on March 9th, and her family assumed she was staying with a friend. When she did not turn up for work on March 10th, her stepfather reported her missing. On Saturday, April 2, 1988, Lori's body was spotted floating in the James River off Craney Island near Ragged Island. Her body was found nude, with no bindings, and with multiple stab wounds to her back. Her death certificate stated unknown for date and place of injury. The similarities between the murders of Brian Pettinger and Lori Powell Compton are striking. Both victims were young people who worked for the same security company, and both were found dead in the James River with signs of violence. The police have not ruled out the possibility that the two murders are connected, but they have not been able to find any evidence to prove it. To this date, all of the murders are unresolved, and the killer has never been identified. The cases remain open, and the police are still actively investigating. In 2021, the Virginia State Police announced that they were reopening the investigation and that they were using new DNA technology to try to identify the killer. To this date, no further information has been provided. If you know any other unresolved story, leave it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.